A lot of people seem to be waiting for the day that Candus goes down. They seem to be under the impression that if Summer's body is found, it's a slam dunk. Summer went missing on June 15th, 2021. 13 years previously, on June 15th, Casey Anthony had an argument with her family. The following day, she stormed off and her daughter Kaylee was never seen again. I made a comment yesterday back to someone about Candus going to jail, and I said she might become the Casey Anthony 2.0. However, I was thinking about it last night, and I think I'm being a bit harsh on Casey, trying to give Candus her crown. It would take a special piece of shit to take that crown off her. And it was interesting going back over the case, how it unfolded, and just comparing it now to the Wells. And I want to talk about it. I'm not going to go into the backstory of her life or mad details on the case. There's other channels where you can find that stuff. I'm just going to talk about the evidence and the charges. The gist of what you need to know if you don't know this story is Casey is a compulsive liar. Her mother bailing her out her whole life. And at 19 she gets pregnant. She doesn't want the kid. She talks to friends about giving her up for adoption. She hides it from her parents till she's 7 months pregnant. When she tells them, she talks about adoption as well. And her dad George is a cop. Her mum Cindy is a nurse. And they're having none of it. They're like, no way, we'd be delighted to have a granddaughter. We'll help you. We'll raise this kid together. She gave birth. Her boyfriend at the time thought that Kaylee was his. It turns out he wasn't. But he stayed with her for a while. And everything was hunky-dory for a year or two. Things seemed to be going okay, but eventually he got sick of her shit, broke it off, and she met her new boyfriend, a DJ, a local DJ, and this is where Kaylee became a real inconvenience to her. So she has that argument with her family on June 15th. Following day, she has the hump, gets up, she's on her PC, she's on MySpace, she's searching how to make chloroform. She goes onto Firefox and searches foolproof suffocation, reads a few articles on that, and she packed her bags and left. Said she was going on a work trip. By the time she got to her new boyfriend's house, Kaylee wasn't with her. She was gone. She was never seen again. She said she was only going for a week or so. She ended up staying there a month. Her mother Cindy kept calling, kept getting excuses of why she couldn't talk to her granddaughter. She was asleep. Oh, she's with the new nanny called Zanny. Meanwhile, Casey is drinking, partying. Her boyfriend is DJing at clubs every night of the week, and she's going along with him, taking part in wet t-shirt competitions, getting tattoos. She's living the life. This is what she wanted. She had her parents' car for work and for Kaylee. They were always trying to support her. She goes to the bank one day to cash a cheque, and she ran out of gas when she was at the bank. And instead of using the money to tow the car back or to get gas, she needs that to go boozing, so she leaves the car there. She bounces. Eventually, it gets called in, it gets towed to the impound. They call the parents, George, her dad, because they're the registered owners of the car. He doesn't know what's going on. He goes down there, pays the fine, and he walks down with the guy that works there at the impound, and they open the car, and straight away a smell hits him, a disgusting smell. The guy that works at the impound said it smells like a dead body. George kind of nods and agrees. He's fuming now. So he gets in the car, drives home, comes into Cindy, tells her about the smell. She goes outside. It stinks. She uses a full bottle of Febreze to try and get rid of the smell, opens all the windows, opens all the doors, finds some black bag of rubbish in the boot that she throws straight in the bin. She doesn't even want to look what's inside her. And Cindy is freaking out now. It's a month since she's seen her granddaughter. She's fuming over this. So she goes and drives to Casey's boyfriend's house. She walks in the door, smell of weed hits her straight away. There's bongs everywhere. She has a big argument with Casey in front of everyone there, being like, where's Kaylee? Where is she? I haven't seen her in a month. I need to see her. She starts spewing excuses, saying, oh, she's with the nanny, Zanny. Casey is freaked that Cindy is at the house and she's acting all embarrassed, and Cindy drags her home anyway. She's absolutely raging. I'm worried. She's worried for where's her granddaughter? She tries to drive her to a police station on the way home because for stealing the car and stealing money from her. But the police station is closed, so this is where she makes her first 911 call. She called saying, I need to drive someone in, I need to bring someone in. She's stole my car, stole my money, and Casey would have been in the car next door at this time, so I think she's just desperately trying to get some answers about where her granddaughter is. I don't think she gives a shit about the car or the money at this stage, but she is fuming. She gets home, she calls 911 again, but this time she's mentioned that she wants to report her granddaughter missing, that she hasn't seen her in a month. That call's in, she says the police are on the way. So she's pacing up and down the house, she's in a heap. And she overhears Casey talking to the brother, saying that Zanny has Kaylee and she won't give her back. And this sets Cindy off altogether. She calls 911 again. This is the third 911 call. I'm going to play a clip from it, just from the start of it here, because you can hear the panic in her voice.
911, what's your emergency? I called a little bit ago, the deputy sheriff saying I found out my granddaughter has been taken. She has been missing for a month. Her mother finally admitted that she's been missing.
Okay, what is
here now?
Okay, what is the address that you're calling from?
We're talking about a 3-year-old little girl. My daughter finally admitted that the baby's in the store. I need to find her.
Your daughter admitted that the baby is where?
But the babysitter took her a month ago that my daughter's been looking for. I told you my daughter was missing for a month. I just found her today, but I can't find my granddaughter. And she just admitted to me that she's been trying to find her herself. There's something wrong. I found my daughter's car today, and it smells like there's been a dead body in the damn car.
Okay, what is the 3-year-old's name?
Kaylee, Caylee, Anthony.
Kaylee Anthony?
Yes.
She goes on for a bit. The dispatcher is as confused as can be because nothing is making sense. Casey comes on the phone and is very casual about everything. Very calm, very casual. She seems irritated by Cindy, so eventually that's why the only reason she comes on the phone and speaks to the 911 operator. She says she knows where her daughter is or who has her, and she only spoke to her earlier that day. Police arrive and Casey takes them to the last place where she saw Zanny the nanny. She took them to an apartment block, provided a description of Zanny. She tells them that she was a co-worker. They knock around, look through the windows, go to the landlord, and he tells them there's been no one in the apartment for months. So they go and get the CCTV footage of the parking lot, go back to the dates that Casey said she dropped her off. They see nothing. There's no one that looks like Zanny. Casey's not there. Nothing. They know now she's lying. This was in Florida and Casey said she was working at Universal Studios. That's what she told the police. But they knew she wasn't. So what they do is, you can see the footage online, they take her out there and they're like, oh, take us to your boss. So she walks in. She used to work there previously, but she was fired a long time ago. Walks in through the employee entrance and acts like she's going to her boss's office. And she walks him around for 10, 15, 20 minutes, gets lost. And eventually she turns around. She's like, I don't work here. 1 month after she was reported missing, she was arrested. She was charged with child neglect, obstruction of justice, and making false statements. We've seen this in other cases as well. Cody Bigsby and his dad, he was arrested very fast. Candus was never arrested. The most they could do there was take the boys from her. Cindy starts to come to her defence and starts pulling back on some of the stuff she said. She said in that 911 call, you heard her say it smelled like a dead body in the car. Now she starts saying, oh, it smelled like a rotten pizza. She's fully behind Casey. She can't comprehend how she could do something like this. And she starts backing her. They take the car that she was travelling. They bring cadaver dogs to the back of the car and they go absolutely crazy at the boot. They look into the boot. They see a stain. The stain of a small body. They take that carpet out and they test it and they find decomposition fluids. They find chloroform that was after being searched on a computer, remember? And some of Kaylee's hair. And even Kaylee's hair, they were able to identify that this hair came post-mortem. This was after she passed. They go look in the PC, they find all that stuff I said earlier, except they didn't actually at the time check the Firefox. They only checked Internet Explorer, so they only found half the searches. What they found at the time was chloroform and neck breaking, but they found chloroform in the boot as well. What they didn't find at the time and they only found a year later was the Firefox tab, and inside that is where she searched that day when she was the only person in the house. Foolproof suffocation. Cindy tries to cover the searches. She said she was searching something for the garden, but they were able to prove that Cindy wasn't even in the house at the time of those searches. Casey was the only one at home. Cindy wants to, and still does to a bit, believe her, completely blind. They hire her attorney and he starts telling them that, oh look, she's going to cooperate, just give her a bail. So she's released on a 500k bail. Mommy and Daddy pay that straight away for her. The media are crazy. If you think Don and Candus are bad, you haven't seen what this was like. I'm going to show a few pictures here of what it was like outside her house, because mothers, their kids, everyone was outside screaming, protesting, shouting at Cindy, shouting at George. A week later she's arrested again, so the police are mad to drag her in for anything they can. This time it was nothing got to do with this case, it was for forging checks. She was bailed out again for another 500k, Mommy and Daddy paid again. But a month and a half later, she was indicted by grand jury on charges of first degree murder, aggravated child abuse, aggravated manslaughter of a child, and 4 counts of providing false information to police. This was with nobody. They didn't find Kaylee at this time. This time she's held without bond. She could have faced a death penalty, but they took that off the table. 2 months later, a utility reader found Kaylee's body. The skull had duct tape around it. Nearby was her bones in a black bin bag. There was a baby blanket with Winnie the Pooh and a laundry basket there. Her room at home was full of Winnie the Pooh stuff, so that definitely came from there. Well, more than likely. But the biggest thing was the laundry basket. That was only sold in pairs, and they found the other one at the house. George, her dad, didn't take it well at all. Cindy didn't want to know about it anytime he brought up, here, look, could she be guilty of this? The media ripped the family apart. George ends up going to a hotel, booking himself in, taking a load of drugs, alcohol, writes a big long suicide note, but I think someone called in a welfare check just before he did anything. He took it really hard. But things are about to get a lot worse for George, because he's told by the defence before the trial comes up that he should be taking the blame. They're going to pin it on him, that in some way it was his fault and he should take responsibility. The defence told him this, he says. But what he didn't know is, and he only found out in court, and he got a lot of grief from his facial reactions in court, but he was warned by the judge, as was the mother before the trial started, that if you show any emotion at all, you're out. But the defence starts coming out saying, oh, Casey was S-aged since she was 8 years of age and this is why she's such a liar. Total bullshit. The trial itself was a shit show. The jury was a joke. They were talking outside of the box, talking to each other. One of them was selling stories to a blogger as the trial was going on. They got totally caught up in the scandal and stopped focusing on the facts. And lo and behold, 10 hours of deliberation, jury comes back, not guilty. Everybody watching this at home was up in arms. There was people marching on the streets. There was protests outside the court again. There was counter-protests to the protests of people saying Casey was innocent and will she marry them. Casey started hooking up with her lawyer. She couldn't pay him, so she must have found some other way to pay him. There was someone actually during the trial walked into his office and she was in there naked. She got 1 year for all the misdemeanor charges, but she had a lot of time in bank, so it wasn't long before she was out. And she seems happy out. She gave an interview recently saying she sleeps well at night, no problem to her. Still blaming her dad, changed her story again, biggest liar going. Parents have no relationship with her. Cindy thinks it was an accident and she covered it up, and George knows what happened, but he's under pressure from Cindy not to say. Even in the last interview, as he was about to say it, she kind of just glares him down. And they love their granddaughter, they did, you can tell that. They're heartbroken by this. So the reason I'm going through all that is look at the charges that were brought against her. Look how many times she was brought in. Look how fast this happened. What makes people think that the police have something in their back pocket for Candus? The first charges against Casey were nothing got to do with the murder. They were for child neglect, making false official statements, and obstructing an investigation. Have we seen any of those charges levelled against Candus? No. Do you think they would if they could? Absolutely, definitely they would. And I think people are trying to find excuses of why they didn't. They're waiting for the big fish, but maybe they just don't have anything. Maybe she didn't do anything. They probably could have gotten her under child neglect alright though. I don't understand that. People are convinced though that Candus is going down, but I'd love to know, what evidence do you think they have? They haven't charged her with anything at all. The best they could do was take the boys. Look at the evidence here that was against Casey. All her internet searches, the crazy lies, the body in the car trunk. If they had enough to charge Candus with second-degree murder or manslaughter, I'm sure they would have already charged her with child neglect or something smaller along the way. Look at Cody Bigsby and his dad Corey. No problem there charging him with child neglect before any murder charges. And they've nobody there either, which is a very difficult charge to bring against. Look at Ariel Sellers' case. I did a video on her before. They didn't find her body either, but they have charged the adoptive parents. But even in that case, I still think it's going to be a very difficult prosecution, very difficult to convict. I do think they have some stuff though, and maybe a lot of Ring doorbell cameras that kind of cover the house, so they know for sure they're lying. Look at Oren and Olsen West. Their adoptive parents again were charged during the week. I can't wait to see the evidence there in some of the documents. Nothing has come out yet, but there must be something solid, especially to say that they're saying that the boys died 3 months prior. They must have some damning evidence. But even here, if you were watching that press conference, the DA does sound a bit unsure. They were only charged with second-degree murder, so they don't feel that they have enough for first degree. The difference there is premeditation. So they think that they killed them, but they don't think they planned it. And that kind of maybe suggests to me that they aren't confident of a conviction. The DA was also in the press conference talking about other nobody murders and convictions in her state and other states, which is never good when you hear them referencing other cases. I think they 100% are involved and did it, but it's very difficult to prosecute. Any nobody murder is difficult to prosecute, especially in children, because it's so hard to prove no proof of life. I did a video before on Larry Millier. They still haven't found his wife Maya's body, but he'll be convicted. I've no doubt there he'll be convicted. Go look at that and look at the evidence and look what it takes to even bring him to trial. Casey obviously is an exception. I think 9 times out of 10 that's a conviction, but it just goes to show how difficult it is, the effect that the media and hysteria has on a jury pool. So looking at all those cases and then looking at the charges that Candus has, none. Even if I'm right in a video I did 2 days ago on the accident theory, can she be convicted? What possible damning evidence would they have? If it went to trial, it would be mayhem. The trial would be way worse than Casey for media and protests outside it. Mainly due to the YouTube era, I think. But back to the charges, do you really think that they wouldn't charge Candus for neglect if they had something? I think they would charge her in a heartbeat. And if they don't have enough evidence for that, then it's very doubtful they're going to have enough evidence for anything else, even with a body. Like, what difference do you think the body is going to make unless she has been shot or broken bones? We won't get any cause of death from it. It's been too long. She could have items like Kaylee did, I suppose, on her that would tie her back to the house, or maybe a blanket or something like that. But even if there is, I don't know if it's enough. It would be very easy to throw reasonable doubt out there, to start throwing neighbours under the bus, Grandis under the bus, Don under the bus. And I'm sorry to say to all the people who really want Candus to go down, I don't think it's ever happening. I can't see it happening, ever. Whether she's involved or not, I don't know. But even if she is, and they had some evidence already, I think they would have charged her with child neglect. I think there'd be some charges there. Let me know what you think. Do you think Candus is ever going to get charged for anything? I'm not saying murder, manslaughter, disposing of a corpse or anything, just anything at all got to do with Summer, got to do with her treatment, got to do with her disappearance. Let me know what you think. Good luck, God bless. Thanks for watching, have a good day.